So you think it's the microphone? Whoa. Okay. Well, whoa, I thought I turned it off.
And then we also have to remember to use these mics. Okay. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody is off. Can we go ahead and start? Should I give it a try?
I think so.
But I want to be unmuted on Zoom to speak, right? Okay. Got it. Okay. Oh, yes. Calling this meeting of the Advisory Water Committee for the Town of Paonia to order. We're a little late. It is 5:07, working out some kinks here. so that we can include JDS Hydro Engineer James Starnes. Did I say that right, James? Okay. So we'll start with the approval of the agenda. Are there any problems with the agenda? Oh, okay, before I do that, make sure everybody, if you're going to speak, you can unmute, but if anybody else is speaking, you have to be muted. Otherwise, we're going to get that feedback. So please pay close attention to that. So we are joined by James via Zoom. We'll go ahead and take roll call. Is anybody? I don't know why we do roll call with this. So we have present committee members Mike Drake, Thomas Markle, Philip Sirianni, and staff members Corinne Ferguson and Travis Loberg with the Public Works Department. I'll start off with the approval of the agenda.
I move that
Thank
we
you.
approve the agenda as written.
Do we have a motion to? Okay, and I did forget to introduce myself, Tammy Mack, I'm the chair. Thank you. And do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, any comments about the agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Okay, we have approval of the agenda. Also, I need to approve the draft minutes. I do have one comment on the draft minutes. I wanted to make it clear that my comment about the, at 543, Regulation 86, the gray water, Colorado gray water regulations, I just want to clarify that not well received just meant really very few towns or cities have passed any legislation at this time. So while it was a big deal to pass it, very few people have got on board.
Tammy, if I may
Yes.
also, regarding the minutes and for last meeting, I would like to publicly apologize to Corinne. I summarized an email that she sent to me, and it came out as though I was speaking for her. I did not intend for that to happen, and I wanted to make it clear that in these meetings I speak only for myself. And in the future, if I need to do something similar, I'll be sure to read any comments verbatim for anybody not present.
So noted. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 19th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Let's get on with regular business. By request from committee member Markle, we have a discussion regarding adding a member to the committee who represents the water fill station users. Discussion. Yes. Yeah, please do.
So the reason that I wanted to bring this up was a member of the public contacted me last week and brought to my attention that there are some, many people that use the fill station or have previously used the fill station in Paonia who feel that the prices are untenable, and for that reason it's basically being unused by a lot of folks. And I realized in my conversation that those people don't have any representation here on this committee. So I think that it might be valuable for us to receive their input, or I don't know the experience of Mike and Phil in this respect. If you guys have used the fill station or are in close contact with anybody that does, it might be a good idea to create intentional representation for those folks because, you know, they, by definition, would be out of town most of the time. And this board, as I understand it, is intended to create a dialogue and representation for folks that aren't inside town boundaries. So I don't know if you guys think that we should add a member or what would be appropriate to address that.
So obviously this is an ordinance. I apologize. So obviously this is an ordinance and the number of members is written into the ordinance. This is something that we could discuss among ourselves and recommend to the board that would require changing the ordinance. And yeah, go ahead with discussion, see if you guys think it's would be worth it.
I have a comment. Both Mike Drake and I were put on the committee as outsiders. I don't live in the town of Paonia, and I think Mike doesn't either. The issue about water sales is difficult because essentially the outside people are not in the service area of the town. The town provides water sales as a value-added proposition for outsiders. And at the end of the day, I think the town ultimately has the right to say and set prices. They also have the right to dictate when the plant is open or not and how they're going to manage it. So I would say the outsiders, and I am one, have plenty of representation. We'll be looking out for them. But recall there are also 27 other contiguous entities that purchase water from the town. 9 of those are public water companies. The rest are small mom and pop companies. And in a certain sense, they have contracts with the town, and they probably have more legal standing in line when water gets short than the outsiders do. So all I can say is I'll look out for them, but I think they don't, at this time, need a place on this committee.
Yes. Yes, Mike.
I agree with what Phil just said. Completely, and I think at least in the past, the city has, at least to me, said that city people have more right to the water than the non-city people, be it a water company or just an outside water, outside the city limits. And I think the city, that puts everybody that's outside of the city but totally dependent upon Paonia water in great dire straits. They could absolutely kill the value of all the properties outside of the city limits that use any area that uses city water if they chose to cut it off. And in my opinion, killing the property values outside of the city would also have a very negative impact on the city itself, the town, I guess. So I think the town needs, in my opinion, the town needs to put out a document that basically says everybody that's currently getting water from the Paonia water system has the same rights as anybody else, whether they're in town or out of town. I don't know that the town will do that. It doesn't cost the town any more money. Actually, it's cheaper for the town if you look at it, and again, in my opinion, on the way from the water plant to the city distribution, Stewart Mesa Water Company comes off with a T. The only thing the town is liable for from the Paonia or the Stewart Mesa Water Company is from the plant to where that T comes off. At that T, Stewart Mesa Water Company takes all responsibility for that, for the pipe stuff. And that is sort of like what they do in town, only the difference is in town, where the water hits your meter, which is approximately your water, your property boundary line, you're responsible for everything else to the house. And I think they really ought to sit down and look at it and reevaluate the out of town and get the cost of getting the water to the people and maintaining the water system and everything else should be fundamentally the same, I think. But they need to figure it out. Thank you.
I have one more comment, Tammy. I do some work for Picken Mesa, and as you know, they do water sales at the rate of about, the town sells about 1 million gallons a year, something like that. Picken Mesa will, and they have pretty good water sources. So I don't want people to think that that in times of drought that we're going to get into some water war with our outside neighbors. That we all, we like a lot of those people that live out of town. I'm one of them. So one thing I think we could do is do some cooperation with Picken Mesa. Picken and the town are the only 2 water sales people on the planet. So when things begin to get tight, Picken has about 90,000 gallons they can sell, but their tank 2 weekends ago got taken down, 100,000 gallons in 2 days. So then you show up at their plant and they say no water today. So I think we could do some cooperation with Pitkin between the town to try and help our neighbors that live outside the city limits. Second thing is I think that water rates are going to go up. That's a fact of life. And I think the water that's being sold at the town right now is, I haul water for a mother-in-law cabin. It's a pretty good deal, really. And I just would warn people all across the board that rates are probably going to go up. So.
Tammy,
So,
apologies, if I could just remind when you're talking, you have to unmute the Zoom or James can't hear you. Thank you.
well, I think we're getting a little off track. What the question is, do we want to add a member of to the committee? And what I'm hearing is that the fill station users are basically represented, that maybe just working something out with Pitkin Mesa and figuring out something that would work for both entities would suffice. I am hesitant to want somebody on the committee who has really a single interest, and that is my concern with it. So I would accept any further comments on this, and if anybody wants to make a motion, either to reject or accept this, take this to the board, I would entertain that.
I would move to reject the motion.
There wasn't a motion.
There
was no motion.
Okay.
That was just a matter of discussion. Yeah, I don't think if we just don't want to take action, I think that's yeah, that's fine. But I just wanted to bring you to the just do that to make sure everybody's aware of the issue, and it may be something we approach again in the future.
Okay, we will discuss this at a later date. Moving on to the JDS Hydro Water Study. James, are you there? Have you been catching this? Are you, do you feel like you're able to be part of the meeting?
I could not actually hear the conversation, so I'm not sure what pertaining to the water report has already been discussed.
So nothing at this point. we just went to that. We just had to get a small item out of the way. So we are just moving into this. So I guess we see this as a kind of a Q&A for you. First of all, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you're involved with this study.
Yes. Going to have to pause for just a minute and let the 5-year-old step out.
Okay.
Thank you for shutting the door. Yes, my name is James Plumstarts. I work with James Hydro, and we had a 3-person team. One of the principals, myself, and one of our EITs who helped develop the water model. My responsibility was largely to coordinate with town staff and also my 2 team members what their assignments were and kind of bring everything together. So I would say that I was the principal writer of the report. So hopefully I can answer your questions pertaining to it. I'm not sure if the intention was for me to ask questions. I was thinking the questions would be directed at me, but maybe you guys were thinking the opposite.
I think we are thinking about that we have planned to.
Talking, I cannot hear that.
Can you hear now? Can you hear now?
I guess. All right. Yeah, I would love to ask some questions. First of all, James, I want to thank you for putting this report together. I think overall, and I've written these comments as a summary. So you're unable to hear me now. Okay. Can you hear me now? Thank you, James. Okay. All right, James. First of all, I've written some comments out. They've been published, so I'm going to be basing most of my questions off of those. I'd like to start by saying thank you for putting together a well-presented, organized, and professional report. I know that it's been a long time coming, and I appreciate the work that you all have done in putting it together. So my primary question centers around the availability of data for you guys. It's a deficiency that's noted throughout the report in several sections exclusively, and I'm hoping that we can begin to address it now, today. So to put it bluntly, specifically, what data would you guys like to have, and what format would you like to have it in?
Well, I think our starting point was
Yeah, I think for this meeting, you can feel free to be as specific as you like. We have, I myself am a BSME, or I guess by education. I never took the, even the EIT, so I'm an unofficial engineer. Mike Drake is accomplished as well, engineer Philip as well. So if you have specific needs regarding, you know, I know it's my understanding that the inflow, the spring production data, and the flume system is incapable of being quantified at this time. The production inflow, spillage, and production numbers, plant inflow, spillage, and production numbers, presumably could be found somewhere. I would assume that that stuff exists. And then, you don't think so? Okay. That would be amazingly, that would be surprising to me, but possible. And then use numbers. Yeah, that would be great. But as well, I think meter numbers, you know, should be, we should be able to come up with meter reads. Okay.
I'm confident that we can collect historical records on that.
Okay.
There was a point at which Corinne and I had some back and forth about the monthly data and even formatting, just the amount of effort is required to filter. That's something we can visit, but that's not insurmountable by any means. We were just kind of reaching the point of our deliverable deadline where, yes, I could have gone back to Corinne and asked for a condensed version of monthly data, but at that point we were kind of just needing to work with what we had, because it was clear that there was a need for the community to see something from us.
Okay.
So on the demand side, I'm very confident that data exists. We can get it. We can incorporate that into the model. On the production side, though, and I caught that Corinne's there. Is Travis there too?
Yes. Yes.
So Travis, please correct me if I'm mistaken this, but because the lower plant was offline, some of the water from the springs was being spilled on the mountain, so to speak, and not brought into the plant, so that it's so all the spillage that overflow. Is that right? That's how I understood it. I just want to make sure that I was understanding it correctly. Pointing out that I don't know that all of the data that people think exists really exists.
Okay. Yeah, if, and I don't know how much depth we're going to get into here, but if we can at least begin the process of finding out what you guys would like to have, you know, have your dream list, and then, you know, make an effort to come up with that, because I feel like that is the outstanding item on the report that is kind of hamstringing the whole thing right now. So that would be great as a starting point, I think, to move forward. Beyond that, I think you guys have put some good recommendations, actionable recommendations together as far as places to start and directions we can go. I'm not sure if how we want to put these. Want to attack them in order, or like, what do we want to do?
I have some comments.
Please.
Philip Sariani. I read your report, and I've also read the last 10 years worth of reports, and the town has consistently had unaccounted for water, or think about it as non-revenue water, in the area of anywhere from 30% to as high as 40%. In the last calculations, I think in your report it was 31, 32%. In some years ago, I have a water plant operator I like a lot. His name is Chris Lancey. He works for Brown Hills Controls. He does most of the controlling in the state for big guys. But there was actually a conference convened about how to go looking for unaccounted water. And the first thing they mentioned was looking for proper metering at the output plants. And I did look those up. We have 2 mag meters, right, Travis? We're pretty confident that our finished water readings are accurate. The answer was yes to that, and I agree. So the second place you go looking is meters in the town. Now, you guys have been asking for data, and I'm of the opinion that we may not have it. We have a meter system in the town, I think, that's more than 20 years old, Badger meters. We're also using some Badger software for reading. It's not even supported. So it becomes extremely difficult to extract data. And we really need to know what our consumptive use data is. And it helps you quite a bit looking for leaks, by the way, because that unaccounted for water is also non-revenue water. And the town has a revenue problem regarding managing our water treatment facilities. So to Thomas's question, the data may be there, and it might take a mechanical engineer to extract it. And the question is there time and resources to do that? I think we should try. Point to that is, I think that we need to prioritize what we need to do in this town to get things kind of organized so we can make some decisions. Most communities will replace 10% of their meters every year, 10 to 15%. And that means new meters, that means upgraded software, that means our ability to look at individual taps and tell what consumptive use is. There's a couple ways to look at that. 109 gallons of consumptive use per individual in a home seems to be a reasonable number. Las Vegas probably has the best water company, believe it or not, in the world. And that's what their number is, with all kinds of environmental things in place. So we don't really know what our consumptive use is. We're assuming we finish 150 million gallons a year. We use 100. So that water's going somewhere. And the best place to find water is to go find non-revenue water. That means that things like reservoir expansion, things like metering upper springs may in fact take a second seat at some point. Third item is that the town is financially strapped. To replace the meters in this town will probably be close to $1 million, something like that. And the fact is that currently I think that's out of reach. So how do we find this non-revenue water? And I would address that question to our engineer and see, how would you suggest we go about this? Is he there? Did he make it?
I am still here. Turning off my video, I'm actually dropping my kids off, so I could fully participate as well in talking as because I had already done that. But I can hear you, and your comment about unaccounted for water, I think, is spot on. I also recognize your concern over the data being collected by old leaders in town and being financially cash strapped. I think
So I have a second question on another engineering piece. Oh, am I unmuted? Oh, unmuted, sorry. Can you hear me now? No, my unmute button's up here. Unmute. There we go. The second question, can you hear me? Oh, all right. The second question I had regarded is more of an engineering analysis. I was quite interested in your comments about the pressure zone analysis in the town. You know, water hammers are deadly to aging water systems. And the reason I asked the question is that we are looking for projects to do next year and try and find some funding. CDPHE has some SRF funding, which we're going to try and write a grant for if we can get it. So I was quite interested in your pressure reading analysis, suggesting that a couple of these need to be replaced, or maybe they all need to be replaced. So my question is, how would you approach rehabbing our pressure zone problems? Well, one of the things I'm concerned about is that over the past 10 years, we have identified problems, then we have, for one reason or another, not had finances or whatever to fix them. And what I'm hearing from you in the last two segments is that we need more engineering studies. We need a water model study. We need a hydrology study. Is it going to be necessary to have that level of expense to fix these problems, or can we take what you've said in this report and just move with it on our own? Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with your assessment about staffing. You know, I'm an operator of small system plants, and I've also been president of a large reservoir company, so I've been around water for quite a while. And we are definitely at least a full-time equivalent short in Paonia. My view is that this additional person should be more of a macro person, planner, grant writer, and writer of a master plan. We need some more direction and focus. Your company has provided us with a lot of things that are wrong. My second thing regards the complexity of the raw water system. I have, in all my small companies, I demand the GIS be built, and I start the modeling plans from a GIS reference point. I honestly have looked at the maps up there on the mountain, and I'm a reasonably smart guy, and I can't figure them out. There's pipes going everywhere. There's no GIS coordinates. The flumes that are up there are read once a week by the water commissioner. And my friend at Brown Hills Engineering tells me that they can put remote sites up there, but the question is, you know, just how much more data are we going to get until we have a fully operational GIS of that surface up there. So I guess we're sort of got to get through this year and see where we're going next. Absolutely. One more question. You made some comments and assessments about raw water storage versus finished water storage. My efforts at trying to build a reservoir at the Overland. Oh shit! Sorry. A question about raw water versus finished water storage. My assessment of having spent 5 years and about $500,000 trying to enlarge the Overland Reservoir, and we were never successful. My personal opinion is that a raw water storage project cannot be done in this state at this time because of the complexity of the regulations. Do you agree with that? Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed your report, and we'll have more questions. Thank you.
Do we have additional questions? Okay, Thomas?
Okay, James, I was wondering if you could give us an outline about what a transient analysis may cost us. I mean, and I'm not asking obviously for a quote, but it was something that was mentioned in the report, and I think something that's probably an important piece of analyzing our system, and it seems like it would be good to know what we might be getting into and what benefit we might expect from stepping into that additional analysis. Okay. And then to touch back on the topic that Phil brought up previously, the unaccounted for water, just like as you could we get like some speculation from you as to the fate of that unaccounted water in your experience? Would that be something that's just simply meter errors, theft, leaks, like a measuring error? What do you think might be most likely? That's okay. 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 Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think I'm trying to be respectful of James this time. I have other questions, but I think that we can hash out the rest of my stuff among ourselves. So that's all that I have, I think, from him or for him.
Okay.
Somebody else I'd talk to.
James, can you hear me? Hopefully.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. What do you think this report loses, and certainly moving forward with looking at the moratorium, what do you think we lose by not having like year-round data? I know there's some areas where we don't have year-round data. What are we missing, and would it be in our best interest to try and get that year-round data moving forward, and even digging to try and find it somewhere in the past, somewhere in the town's records? Any further
Well,
questions?
one more
from anybody?
question. Does your company, does JD Hydro, along with DOLA, get involved in doing master plans for communities such as ours? Could you give us a clue on what the master plan for Gunnison cost? Okay, yeah, that would be helpful. The last thing we haven't talked about is your company's commentary on water rights. I've been in water rights stuff for a while. I think personally that it's essential that we figure some of that out, particularly when the times of drought start showing up. A lot of people start showing up at the splitter box with a tape measure, and I assume we'll have to hire a water attorney to do that. These rights have been historic and really haven't budged much in 50 years. You made a lot of comments. Do you think it's essential? This is an essential thing that we work on as soon as we can? I mean, water rights are essential. What's your view on that? So what I've gotten out of your report, at least my shopping list would be number one, try and get a grant to fix our PRV stations. I mean, we have a fragile system and water hammers are killers. My second agenda item would be to address the meter problem in town, upgrade software, possibly our wireless meter things. My third assessment would be to try and get some raw water modeling. We have quite a bit of data on the distribution system, but honestly, we don't know where a lot of those, maybe Travis does, a lot of those straws that are in the mountain up there are probably, I don't know if we have GIS information. We probably don't know where a lot of that stuff is. And I suspect a lot of leakage in the systems on the raw water side. Does that seem like a reasonable quad of projects, or would you rearrange those somehow? Sure. I'm sorry, that line's about 10,000 feet, right, Travis? Yeah. 83 is put in. Okay, well, we'll sort of look at that. Well, thanks again. Thanks very much.
Okay, if anybody from the audience has anything directly related to this, I would entertain. If you've still got a couple of minutes, could we just entertain a couple of questions from the public?
Absolutely. My undivided attention is actually about to begin, so I can hang out as long as you need. And I apologize that it hasn't been entirely without children.
You're good. You really are. Okay, I think we're going to end the questions there. James, you have been incredibly helpful, and this is, I'm sure this is a continuing dialogue, and we will be working with you and JDS in the future. So if you have any closing comments, that'd be great. If not, we'll let you get back to your family.
If I may I just comment before I sign off?
Please do.
Well, again, I do want to emphasize that while the town of Painted does have challenges that it needs to address, they are not necessarily unique. That I think there is tremendous value in learning what you don't know. You do have a very sophisticated collection and distribution system that has been, again, operated with Herculean effort by your staff. There is work to be done. One of the things that I've been really encouraged by, even being invited to participate in this, is the citizen engagement. So, I mean, I just want to commend the town citizens for being actively engaged. That doesn't always happen. And that oftentimes is one of the biggest challenges that we see, is that people don't want to think about it, let alone pay for it. So, you know, I think the awareness of the importance of having a reliable water source, I recognize was really brought to the forefront. It's been at the forefront of some people, but everyone's mind in that town when in 2019. And I just want to say that I think that probably, to me, gives a lot of encouragement that all of the things that we've talked about, all the things that we've already put on paper, will hopefully not get lost along the way. It'd just be another report that 5 years from now, another engineering firm is looking at going, well, somebody did something. But that, you know, there will be concrete steps taken to move forward and provide, you know, the water system that the community wants and feels that they deserve. Just finally, you know, recognizing that, well, that is going to take investment and patience. It's not going to happen tomorrow, and just stress that it's going to take investment and patience.
Well, on that
that's
note, go ahead.
That's my closing statement.
Well, it's greatly appreciated, and yeah, thank you for your patience. We're struggling with some issues on our side, and our administrator is working on a little bit better a system, so hopefully if we talk to you again online, it will go a little more smoothly.
Okay, very
Thanks.
good. Thank you.
Yep. Have a nice night.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Okay. I'm assuming we're going to stay on here. I mean, I think we still have a little bit to discuss.
So, and I did note, so the public's aware, because in this room, so if we can't get that figured out by Tuesday night, we probably will use the call-in and drag in our conference phone in here, so it's over the telephone instead of on a computer screen, but we'll continue to try to work through that before Tuesday.
Thank you for working on that. I do want to throw something out there that I'm not sure all the water committee knows, and that is it was announced at the last meeting that the American Rescue Plan approved a grant for Paonia. It's over $369,000, half of it to be administered in 2021 and the other half in 2022, and this can be used for water infrastructure. So it's been received. Nice. So there is something to look forward to, and I could have started that off with that, but sorry I didn't. It's exciting news, and it seems to me that the next step in all of this is creating a list of priorities and something that we can all agree on to present to the board. Of course, how that money will be spent is going to be up to the board, but we certainly can put in our requests. So I don't know if we want to start discussing that tonight, or if anybody has anything else we should discuss. It seems like the number one thing we need to do next.
One thing I was pushing the engineer on his priority list, and and Travis can comment on this, and you know, I think we need to get some bids on the PRVs. I think solving this pressure zone problem is probably, in my opinion, number one on the list. I don't know, what do you think about that, Travis?
Yes, I do believe pressure zones is
Yeah.
an important process.
What's your thinking about cost on that? Are they all going to have to be replaced or rebuilt, or are the one 12-inch or 14-inch one they think should be smaller? I read in this report.
Yeah, there's one 12-inch that needs to be smaller.
Have the other meters ever been rehabbed or tested, or are they?
Yes, they've been rehabbed.
Okay. So
There's-
maybe we could ask you, because if we have some money to spend, we're gonna have to be very efficient and be very careful. So we might ask you by sometime, maybe next meeting or something, to figure out how we would. The other reason I asked him if we could do this on ourselves, I don't think we need to have a bunch of engineers tell us how to replace a PRV. I mean, that's something we could do ourselves, you think? Or would you have somebody come in? Yeah. So and see, the second item, just as an opinion, would be that some of this, we got two things out of this tonight. One is that we don't have enough master planning. So I think in the future, some piece of this money should be put towards building a master plan, having somebody help us do it. I think the third item is, I think we've identified that meters are a huge problem. All the griping about data that we can't get is largely, Corinne, would you say it's from the antiquated system we have for recording and all that, or some?
We've replaced a substantial, gosh, we've got to be close to 90% of our individual meters as far as on, residential commercial side with the radio read, remote read meters. There are a large number that need to be completed, and then there's the conversation also about having those conversations then with the water companies, because I hear frequently that our master read meter on the water companies doesn't match the readings that they get when they're reading the individual meters. So I think that there's a need to upgrade some of those agreements as well, and look at how often the consecutive systems do any kind of maintenance or upgrades on their individual meters.
Yeah, I represent German Creek, and we had this conversation not too long ago. The question is I don't know what the master meters, when they were put in, how old they are, whether they're turbines or mag meters, or I think the question we really, I don't honestly, I shouldn't say that, I'm not sure I care what happens on the other side of the meter. What I'm concerned about is that the master meter is dead accurate, because that becomes our methodology for.
I made a list of, a kind of growing list of what I saw JDS saying, this is what we need to do, and in no particular order. It is staffing, PRV vault overhaul, and they do give an estimated cost of between $75,000 and $250,000 for that. Getting and keeping the clock treatment plant online and functioning continuously. Monitor and measure spring flow at the source. Unaccounted for water, repair of the system, particularly the lower part of the system. Ensure sufficient fire flow throughout the entire delivery system. Raw water storage. Legal opinions of water rights, and master plan. So I think somewhere in there, and there may be other priorities that people might have, but I think somewhere in there we could make a list of, start setting our priorities. And I agree with Philip. I think the PR vault overhaul is something we need to do. We do not need another 2019, and that would be, in my mind, a huge priority. So.
A question on that. I read in the report that we have more than 50 fire hydrants that can't sustain 1,000 gallons a minute. Is that right? Yeah. So the question, are we operating then under some sort of special dispensation from the fire department, or what are the consequences of not having enough water to run our fire system? Or do people just looking the other way? We probably shouldn't. Anyway, well, that'll be. Yeah. Okay, well.
I also believe that in the report, there is a question about the pressure hammer tests run by the fire department that were contributing causes or the cause of pipe breakage during that water crisis.
Yep.
If anybody else caught that?
Yep.
Yeah. I talked with a fire.
When you open a fire hydrant and have it all the way on and turn it off before I can turn a block around, that'll cause water hammer. No, I was not.
I will confirm that the fire department does not notify every time that they open a hydrant. And we have had other situations in town where a hydrant was opened and shut down in a way that it caused an issue on a water line. We've spoken with the fire department about when that happened, and they don't do that any longer without notification.
I would like to revisit some of my questions that are not for James, or not for JDS. I have a couple, and they're mostly going to be for staff, but maybe good just for discussion. And again, I'm going to revisit data just because.
So, yes and no. We cannot pull, it is a yes and no answer. I can only pull through our Cassell system, in the Cassell system right now, 5 years back from the date that we're at right now. But we have monthly books that we print out that have our meter readings, but it's only a monthly data that we can manually scan and provide to JDS.
So is this a limitation of Cassell, or was the system changed 5 years ago?
The Cassell has a block in there where you set how long you collect data, and through our records retention policy previously, you only collected and maintained 5 years of that data in the Cassell system.
Okay. So at least 5 years.
That I can pull right now, yes.
Okay.
Beyond that, I have
Can
to
you-
use the monthly printed
Can you
reports.
get like a database dump and send that to JDS and us?
So when he's
Please.
talking about the reports that he was asking for and that they didn't come back and ask for a reduced amount, and that was because I provided them 3 months, and 3 months of the reporting that they requested was over 200 pages.
Yeah, I remember hearing that in the town meeting, and I wondered what a page of data means, because in a database system, it wouldn't be measured in pages. Was it printed?
It is measured in pages. When we pull a report from Cassell, it pulls it up in a format that is pages.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask that you contact Cassell or do a brief research and find out, rather than generating a report, how to get a database backup so that you are not using Cassell to interpret the database, but rather you're capturing the underlying data, which then can be manipulated however JDS sees fit, so that they can pull out, just the first year, just the second year, just the meter reads, just in November, whatever, however they want to play with it. Because I think that probably what happened was you handed them something similar to what's I think it's Appendix A, the annual summaries, and they're looking at rows of meter reads that have already been interpreted by Cassell. And there must be a method of transferring that data outside of Cassell's reporting system.
Yes, so we could, and I'll have to look and see how far back those save in the computer system because I don't know offhand, but the raw data that we enter into Cassell comes from our Badger meters.
Yes.
So we run, that is the raw report, and I'm sure that's probably what you're talking about. And we have those, I just don't know
Yeah,
how many
that would be good
years
too.
backup is in the
Yeah,
computer
yeah,
system.
all of that would be good too,
So.
I think, for those guys, because that's like one of the biggest components of this whole thing is, you know, the change throughout the year of how much water we're using, and they can, you know, work back into how much water we're producing or has been produced, and, you know, based on the loss calculations that they've done. But I think that would be something that would be like the most important thing you could do, is get them that underlying data.
Okay.
Without it, as they've stated, this report is conjecture and not useful for predicting what might happen or even knowing what has happened.
I don't believe they said that, though. I don't believe JDS at any point said that their report and analysis was conjecture or not useful.
Well,
At
they
all.
have I actually got it quoted right here. Without these in operation providing reliable data, any assumptions on the condition of raw water collection pipelines and yields is conjecture. That's collection. But I would assume that the same is true of any other parts that are missing data. So, like,
Right.
without get like,
Right.
like,
And
please,
I would just,
let's look into like getting them the underlying, like, just a database backup. It should be a SQL or SQL, if you want to say it that way, database, or it could be Access. I don't know what the background on Cassell is, but it must be transportable because they're.
it would be
that's
the
just the way
Badger
it would work.
report.
That's
Yes.
fine. However,
That's the
However-
raw data.
whatever format it's in, wherever it comes from, please, can we get it to them? And us, that's the same stuff we were asking for 6 months ago. Aside from that, they mentioned that we have a staff member who was hired to be dedicated to the water system. Who is that?
Mitchell McAllister,
Can we meet him?
sure. He's learning. He was hired as a backup assistant, is going to start doing testing and things like that to get certifications with Travis.
Okay, is he gonna try and fulfill the certification requirements for,
He does plan
All
on
of that?
getting some of the water certs, yes.
okay, awesome. Thank you. Was JDS aware of his, plans?
Yes.
Okay. Sweet.
When they're discussing the staffing, it's above and beyond the two that are primarily dedicated to water and sewer, which would
Right.
be Travis and Mitchell.
Okay, Mitchell. Okay, and then for SOPs, do we have any starting point for those? Yes, sir.
Each plant has its own SOP.
Okay. JDS outlines, let's see, the last part. Yeah, generic water break forms, sampling and testing, treatment facility start and stop, all that stuff. Do we have a starting point for these, I assume? Okay. Can we, I think that this is something that's like, you know, no offense, Travis, but I mean, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow and we don't have instructions on how to do half the stuff you do, we're all in deep.
Each one of the plants, like I said, has a standard operating procedure for the entire plant.
Okay, all right, yeah, based on what I'm reading in the report, that wasn't the case, but I understand that is. Thank you.
Committee Member Drake has a question.
I have a question.
Can Committee Member Drake go first, please? He hadn't had a chance to speak. Oh, okay, he says he's done, okay.
I have a question on FTEs and full-time staffing. I toured the plant with Travis up there, the upper plant, and, you know, I run plants, and it's quite a handful up there to make that thing run. You guys should go look at it. It's amazing. So as I was walking through that plant, my assessment is that we need more help. And in my assessment, what I said earlier was that possibly a full-time equivalent. I think Mitchell is going to be nice, but he's not rated yet. He's got to take a D test. He's got to learn. And I'm not sure a D operator could run that plant. If he got in trouble, maybe he could. I don't know with enough training. So my question is, how do we go about getting another, say, full-time equivalent for the town that would be sort of somebody, like I said, that would be looking at master planning, would be looking for grants, would be the interface, and not have to run up the plant to turn a valve? I mean, how would we convince the town that that is necessary? And I think it is. I think it's essential.
So staff provides to the board what we believe is necessary for staffing and requests, and what that will cost in the budget, and the impact that that will have on the budget, which includes what you're talking about really is specific to water. And
this person could do water and wastewater.
right, and so those are two, enterprise funds, as you know, and so those are primarily most extensively funded from themselves. So we have to take those requests to the board. The advisory water committee would have to take those kind of suggestions and requests to the board, and the board would have to agree to funding the additional positions.
So I'll ask you straight out, what's your position on needing more staff? What's your view?
Unequivocally, we need more staff.
And how, just to pick your brain, what kind of person would be ideal for you?
I
And
think
Travis, by the way.
I think that when we're looking for someone who has the ability to write grants and things like that, that's a bigger picture, not specific just to water or sewer. But when we're talking about specific to water and sewer, they need more bodies that can do the work, not the administrative side, as much as do the work. We had recently some comparisons to our spring maintenance compared to Crawford, the town of Crawford. I actually really appreciate that example because Crawford has a beautiful spring area. It's very well maintained. It's very clean. It looks really nice. Crawford has one spring. Crawford has one water treatment system. Crawford has exactly the same amount of staffing for their system as Paonia does. We have 30 springs, 2 complex systems, and the same amount of staffing, 2 people.
I agree totally. So how does that get into the budgetary process? What are the timelines? I mean, if we make a recommendation that you need more staff, what happens?
You can make the recommendation at any time, and with board direction, staff would start looking at that. The Finance and Personnel Committee has stepped in to do more of the presentation of the budget process, but budget talks with the board at committee level and then at the board kind of kick off around August and really hit the ground with typically the public meetings in the schedule October. So we're starting to compile that data and starting that process right now. As soon as the audit ends, which anticipated presentation of the audit is the first meeting in July, we finish that process and we immediately go into the budget process.
One other thing, I've been involved in these grants. One other thing, did you say you have the Biden money already? We had that 360,000.
The first, so it comes in 2 parts. The
Right.
first portion, yes, it's interesting. We haven't even received notice of award of grant, but we received the grant funds today.
So one of the things you might think about is that these grants, and I've administrated, I need a project administrator. I personally think if I were in your shoes, I would have an independent project administrator for that money. And what you could task that particular project administrator to do would be some master planning, and you can pay that project administrator out of those funds, right? There's always funds available for administration of grants, right?
Right.
So that might be a workaround for you, and while things are getting crazy, that you could task that person not only with doing some master planning, which might mean you only need a half a FTE or something like that. It's just something to think about.
Mr. Drake.
Oops, over here. Yeah, but I got the volume turned down. Okay. Is that working? I think we're getting down in the weeds, and that's what engineers do. And Phil's a great engineer. I think we have to roll back and do what they told us to do and what they're going to try to do, and then we can compare. We need to come up with what the priorities are. Staffing is one. Spring flow is one. The water hammer, all this stuff we're talking about, we have to come up with a list of what the projects are. We can estimate or say we don't know what it's going to cost. And then we can prioritize them and give them as much information as we can. But you got to remember, the two people sitting over there aren't the decision makers. It's the board that makes the decisions. And even though we may say staffing is number one, the board may look at it and say, well, no, we don't think so. And so we need to work on our priorities list and get it agreed upon and get it something that we can give to the board, and then we can have discussions with them, and then they'll do their magic little thing. So we need to keep that in mind and try not to get too far down in the weeds.
Excellent point. Stay on task. So that maybe bring up the question, do we want to hold a meeting between now and our July monthly meeting? And also take into consideration the committee members have been requested to be at the June 22nd board meeting. We are going to have a discussion about the study, so if it's possible to be at that meeting, we would greatly appreciate your presence. So do we want to plan another meeting, or how do we want to do this? Because this now that there are funds, potential funds for this, do we want to prioritize this? Do we want to move a little quicker, or do we want to meet in July? It would be our next meeting, which, so the third meeting in July, or I'm sorry, third Wednesday in July.
The invitation for the
That would be
advisory
our
water
next
committee is the
meeting.
June 22nd meeting.
I'm talking about our next water committee meeting, so sorry for the confusion.
So that would be the 21st, July 21st, is that correct?
That sounds right. So,
Right, okay.
so, and we might find out some things at the board meeting that will help guide us. So, so should we meet next in July? Or would you like to hold a meeting sometime between now and then to discuss this? It's totally up to you guys.
I'm for
And
getting
Corinne and
together
Travis.
to discuss whenever. I don't know how much detail we're going to get into at the town meeting, but that may suffice for prioritization. You know, I think your list pretty much, like, you got all the options at least, and it may be you know, if we want to come up with our favorites, we can do the same. I can do the same poll thing that I did before, and just like take your list and say, okay, you know, everybody pick their top 3 or 5 or whatever, and then summarize it all so that we can come up with a kind of an average of what we all think. if we want to have an official motion for that, we'd probably want to get together and have a meeting, although that may also be possible if we're all there at the town meeting. Or we could do it now.
I guess we all have our favorite list, but I haven't heard of a favorites list from staff. In other words, we're in the unusual position of having some money that we didn't think we were going to have, so that's pretty cool. But the question is, some of that go to infrastructure, some of that go to planning. I think we should do the important infrastructure things, but I think what we've seen from the scene tonight is that we don't have a master plan. And so I think it would be of interest to see what you and Travis have, would be on your dream sheet, and it would be nice to know what that is before the town meeting. And then my personal bent is a little bit of some money for infrastructure, some money allocated for planning. And how we do that, I'm not sure yet, but so to the question, I have another meeting. I think we need to have some consensus before we show up, personally. I mean, I don't mind getting
But
together.
I don't think we're going to be bringing our presentation to the board at the next meeting. This is just going to be a discussion about the study, maybe similar to what we had tonight.
well,
So we don't, this isn't, we have to have it by the next meeting, but do we want to have a meeting in between now and our next regularly scheduled meeting? And I also think, as Mr. Drake said, we need to have costs associated with these things too. So to just put it together and say, here's a list, I think is insufficient for what we would be requesting.
Okay. What do you guys think about meeting on June 30th next week, or 2 weeks from now, Wednesday?
That would work for me, but I think, okay.
I can probably make that work, but I think we ought to do what Thomas ought to do what he recommended, and that is send all of them and get everybody on the record as to what ones they think are most important.
Okay.
And that'll make the meeting go a whole lot easier.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I
can
don't
do
think
that.
we need a motion for that. I think just a request would be,
Okay.
if you could do that, that would be
I'll
great.
go ahead and put together a survey similar to what I did for the initial few meetings we had,
Okay.
with the topics based on the JDS recommendations.
So, Corinne, we have another report coming due from SGM, right? Is that on the GIS in the town? When's that going to happen?
The system mapping portion
Yeah, right.
is, that's primarily complete. There's one other component that they're going to be scheduling and that we've added to the system mapping, which is the spring lines themselves. They've got if you've looked at it online, the spring boxes are marked, but the lines from the boxes down are not, and there's some specific data and things in there that Travis wanted included, and he wasn't available to take them
Sure.
when they were doing that mapping, so they're getting ready to do that.
So that map is online now?
It is.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's on the town website. If you go to the Public Works page, there's links.
Is it is it an interactive?
It is not. It's just it's just specific maps of the water system.
Who's the contact at SGM for that? Do you remember?
Well, our main contact is Brandon.
Is Brandon? Okay.
Mhm.
I'll talk to him. All right. Thank you.
All right, with that, I think we probably tortured ourselves enough tonight.
If I could ask one question
Yes,
before.
please do.
Of course, in that ordinance, my attendance at the meeting is supposed to be in lieu of Travis when Travis can't attend, but I wanted to gauge the advisory committee's feeling on the importance of my presence at the meetings. Do you feel that my presence is important at these meetings at the current time or not?
I think it's very helpful, but personally, I don't think it's imperative. We can always follow up with questions, and I know you have been very, very busy. So I personally would say, if you have other priorities, you can always watch it later, and we can certainly update you on the meeting after the meeting. But that's a last what everybody else thinks.
Well, I like having you here.
I'm indifferent.
I would say it's up to you. Just,
I like you being here, but I also think that as we go through, we can write, we come up with questions for you, so all we gotta do is write them down and give them to you, and you can work on them later. So is it imperative that you're here? I think not, as long as we can get questions to you, so we can get answers.
Okay, I will continue to try to make myself available as often as I can, but that is, I do appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
but just to clarify, Travis would still be here. One of you would be here. Great. All right. Any further discussion?
One more question. How are we on the sanitary survey violations? Have we cleaned all those up?
There's only one outstanding. There actually was a compliance update that just went out. CDPHE sent out their notice of compliance reminder because we're coming close to the dates.
Right.
And I was able to reach out to Alex Hawley, our compliance
yeah.
officer, and she confirmed that yes, we cleared 2 of them several months ago. They just hadn't updated. So we have one that's still outstanding. It has a July 7th date, and that is some additional modifications that they requested on our backflow and cross-connection prevention spreadsheet.
Did they accept our lead and coppers that we did? We repeated those, right? And they're all okay? Awesome. Good job.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, how long do you think it will take to produce the underlying data from Cassell or the whatever meter read badger system, whatever? How long do you think it will take to get that together and to JDS at least?
It depended on, so I was coming in and out trying to work on the sound system. Did he specify to you a
No.
time frame that he was looking
He
for?
did not.
Okay.
That's
So
that
I will
was our
reach out to
discussion.
him and I can provide him, my turnaround is usually less than 24 hours with the information that they've requested from me.
Okay. How long do you think it will take to get that data together? 24 hours?
I should be able to respond with him within 24 hours when I get a period of time that he wants. So I will ask him, I will follow up and email him and ask him if that data would be helpful and for what period of time he would like it for. And as long as ours goes back that far in the system, I will give it to him. I'm not just going to do a raw data dump on him without him telling me what he wants.
Well, you could give it to us, you could give it to him, or you could, I mean, like,
I understand what you're saying. I'll continue to add things to the Google
So
file.
you-
I added a year of the consumption analysis broken down month by month
I know
today.
exactly. Okay.
And I will start adding the raw data analysis to the file.
Okay. Thank you so much, Corinne. Really appreciate it.
And what's the status of the Lake Fork breach? Have you fixed that, or didn't you have a spring leak on Lake Fork or Lake? Yeah. And what's the status of that pipeline? Is it old? Oh, sure. Yeah, we can get this. I'll talk to him afterwards. Thanks. Yeah, let's go home.
Just a very quick question. Why is that data available now to give, but it hasn't been in the last year?